This is the Northern Lights lesson. It is a pretty simple project. To start off, you are going to use a white oil pastel to draw a line across your paper. Next, you want to make sure your next paper is a little bit larger than your black paper, and you are going to tear a piece starting at the top, going all the way across. You want it to kind of have some curving, interesting lines. And then you're going to use that first strip of paper to create your first three colors for your Northern Lights. I chose to use pink, green, and white. You can choose any colors. If you would want to do more than three, you definitely can. I'm going to stick to just three on each strip. Coloring with my chalk pastel, I want to make sure that the chalk is kind of thick. You want to make sure it's enough of that chalk on there that when you go to pull the chalk from that piece of paper onto your black, there's enough of that powder to pull. If you color really lightly, there's not going to be enough, and it's going to make your Northern Lights look really dull and you won't be able to see them. So I'm going to make sure that I have my whole piece covered there at the top with enough to pull off of it, and using an up and down motion with my finger, I'm going to push those colors off of that tan sheet up onto the black. So again, just going up and down. You do not want to do any other motions here. And once you pull that piece away, you're going to notice your first set of Northern Lights. And I'm going to do this again with three different pieces, and I'm going to be choosing different sets of color for each piece. This is just an example to show you what would happen if you didn't use enough of the chalk pastel and you incorrectly smudged. So instead of using an up and down motion, if you tried to rub in different directions, and if you didn't have enough of that chalk pastel on your paper, you're going to notice that your Northern Lights are not going to show up. They're going to be very dull and not so impressive. Make sure you keep a napkin close by to keep your fingers clean. You are going to want to get that chalk off your hands. Next, you're going to use your white oil pastel again to start creating that thicker snow line. The parts of the snow that are closer towards the Northern Lights, you want that to be darker and more heavily white. And then when it gets closer to the bottom of the paper, you're going to fade out to create lighter lines where it starts to create the snow falling onto the ice. And you do not have to have it perfectly colored in white. A little bit of the black showing does help to make it look like real snow. We're going to use our black paint to start painting in our trees. And you want to remember our rules of foreground, middle ground, and background here. Trees that are further away from you are going to be smaller, and trees that are closer to you are going to be larger. So make sure while you're painting, if your tree is going further back in that snow line, it is small, closer is large. Here is a slowed down version to show you how to paint that tree. Start with that straight line in the center, and then on each side of the straight line, you're just going to create these curving lines that come out to create the edges of our evergreen tree. Pretty simple. So I'm going to finish adding in the rest of my trees onto my picture here. Next, we want to make sure that we are adding in some of the reflections down here on the ice. Any color that you used in the northern lights, you can use in the reflections. So for example, I did not use any purple, so I would not add any purple down here. And I'm kind of just matching up where in the northern lights I have that color, and I'm just lightly adding that down to the bottom in the ice, as well as using the black paint. Where I have those trees that are close to the water's edge, I'm going to add those reflections in as well, just following that same shape, just lightly mapping in some black there, and then using the black to also create some random lines. For our snow that is going to trickle down across our entire page, using the back end of your paintbrush, you are going to dip it into the white paint to create your snow dots that go across your page, and it is up to you how much snow you would like on your picture. For the stars in the sky with the northern lights, make sure your brush is cleaned out so you have a clean edge of your brush there with the hairs. Not too much white paint. If you are globbing and scooping up paint, that is too much. You want to make sure it is just a little bit on the brush, and we're going to use our finger to flick that paint onto the sky to create stars. The more paint you have on the brush, it will end up doing more of a splatter paint instead of just the tiny stars. So just make sure it's not too much paint on your brush. I'm going to finish adding those into the sky to create my beautiful Northern Lights picture.